Good morning, Rabbi Isai. We're back in Chicago, live in that Sulla building. And before I start this year, I just want to put this out there for the parents. If there are any children watching, today's shir happens to have a little bit of an adult theme at the end. So take it as it is. It's Torah, but I just wanted to throw that out there. I want to read a couple of emails here. The first one is by Yehuda Steng, Stenge. I don't know how to pronounce it exactly. First of all, thank you for your amazing shurim you give every day, even now on vacation when it's not always easy. Really appreciate it. I was very excited to see that the shir is now in the Chicago Hatzalah building, which was dedicated in honor of my grandparents, Nathan and Leah Averick, Aleim Shalom. With the zechus of the shir being there, be nishmasam. Thanks again, Yehuda Stenge, RBS. In the picture, me by the building in summer 2021. Here he is by the building. And then I received many of these, so I just want to read one and say thank you to everybody for sending in their emails. Mazel Tov on your new granddaughter, much nachas from her, love your shir, Mickey Aboff. Her name is Rivka Bela, and they're going to be calling her Rayleigh. Rivka Bailey, Rayleigh. And finally, this one is Hashgacha Pratis email by Shmuley Soroka, Toronto, Canada. It's complete quiet here, right? Thank you. Thank you so much for your amazing share. Join with the Yevamos and you make it so interesting with a clear sense of humor and energy. I want to share with you an amazing Hashgacha Pratis. I'm a teacher here in Toronto. Yesterday I was learning with my class Parshas Gdoshim. We're discussing the mitzvah of Lifnei Iver, Loisita Michshol, and Rashi, that the Torah is referring to giving bad advice, like when your friend is in a tough spot, don't sell him your donkey in exchange for your field. Because cars always appreciate in value and property always goes up in value. What's frozen? Zoom is frozen. Okay. There's nothing I can do. Maybe they should all go to YouTube. It's not frozen here in Chicago. Later yesterday evening, I'm preparing a parsha worksheet for my class. Halachic dilemma for them to discuss. I take a break to listen to your shir, and seemingly out of nowhere, sorry, tell the story of the guy who wants to sell you the apartments for $16,000 because he tells you property always goes down in value. I cannot believe it. It's exactly what I was discussing with my students earlier that day. Your story is my halachic dilemma for them to discuss. Do you have an obligation to tell the guy he's making a mistake? Can I ask you, how would you explain to them that what you did was permitted minat Torah? What about Lifnei Iver? I'm thinking the Torah supports capital markets. Lifnei Iver is to make sure Jews don't get ripped off, like not charging interest. Curious though, what you would answer my students. Thanks so much. Shmuley Soroka, Toronto, Canada. All right, ask your local Rav. I have no idea what you're talking about, but okay. This is Eino Yehudi asked me for a price. He named the price on his property, and I agreed to the price. Why is that Lifnei Iver? I don't understand his dilemma exactly. He's saying that if somebody's in a bad, tight spot, and they're selling off something because he's in a bad position, I hear that's Lifnei Iver. But the guy was free to do whatever he wants, free to charge whatever he wants, and he decided that's the value of his property. I don't know that there's an issue. Ask your local rabbi. With that being said, Rabbi Isai, we have
YouTube and Zoom.
All right, Rabbi Isai, here we are. A little bit of a delay. Today's sponsors, Paras HaChodesh for the Koilel, is Mr. Anonymous and Zechus of Hil Ben Sar Dino Rivka Bas Fega. They should be zechus to Zerusha Kayama. Paras HaChodesh, friends and family, Refuah Shlema for Yaakov Yehuda Ben Gittel. Paras HaChodesh, Bresler, Austein, Rosenberg, Schulman, and Tobias families, the zechus Refuah Shlema for Rosh Yeshiva, Rav Yisroel, Meir, Dovid, Ben Yocheved, Druk Shlita. Paras HaChodesh, by the Lock and Lebovic families, Lakewood NJ, because Torah is the best gula. Paras HaChodesh, Chodesh Nisan, sponsored by Yoli. Leading was Dov Pinchas Ben Moishal Shalom, Leimishim Chomel Chayev from Abbas, Dov Pinchas Aleh Shalom. Nishmas Zechiel Shrago Ben Avram Alevi Aleh Shalom. Paras HaChodesh, Ahron Fraiman, Zechus, Parnosa, and Siyat Shmai, and continue Aslach to Rebelli. By Josh Itzkowitz, in honor of my marriage tonight to Devorah Cohen. What's that? Not tonight, Matzah Shabbos. Sunday? Mazel Tov to the entire Cohen clan. Again, Josh Itzkowitz, in honor of my marriage tonight to Devorah Cohen. Unbelievable. Nishmas Mereinu Arav Agoyin, Arav Meir Scheinberg, Zeichet Tzadik Tosh Lebracha, Rav Meir ben Arav Shmuel, Rabboisai. Here we go. Hopefully, how's it going, Mark? Kacha kacha. All right. Still, we have low systems, low resources. And this has to be browsed by individual thing. Okay, that's maybe part of the problem. Okay. So here we are, Daf Lamed Amud Aleph on the top. Yesterday we had this very interesting story in the Mishnah. I'm going to see, was it a true story or not such a true story? But what happened was we had two brothers who married two sisters, and there was a situation where the brides got confused and the brothers were over on 4 different isurim, all in one shot. So we have it over here, if you look at the screen. So we have Ruvain got married. He got married to Rachel. And as soon as he marries Rachel, what happens to Rachel? Rachel becomes an Eishes Ish. Becomes an Eishes Ish. And at the same time, she also becomes an Eishes Ach. So Yehuda cannot marry Rachel for 2 reasons. A, she's an Eishes Ish, and she's also an Eishes Ach. You go to the next slide. Then Yehuda gets married to her sister Leah. At that point, once Yehuda gets married to Leah, so Rachel has another Isser called Achos Isha. Now that, Rabbi Isai, if you look in the bottom of the screen, it tells you that that's called the Isser Kailo. Why? Because Yehuda is already Asr to Rachel. There's no bigger Isser in Rachel. Nothing happened more to Rachel. Rachel was Asr before because she was a Eishes Ach and Eishes Ish. There's another Isser, a general Isser called Achos Isha. It's also because that Isser of Achos Isha also applies to other women, to the other sisters. So it's Isser Kail. There's other Isurim going on here. Yehuda is now Asr because he married Leah. He's Asr now to Batya and to Yocheved and to Rachel because of Achos Isha. In other words, if you look at it in another way, let's say Reuven wasn't even married to Rachel. Rachel would still be Asr to Yehuda because of Achos Isha. So that's what Isser Kail does. It doesn't add any Isser to it. It's like eating Nevela Yom Kippur. The Nevela is 100% Asr. Now you add Yom Kippur to it, you didn't do anything. It's Asr to eat this food. But if you would remove the Nevela, let's say you pretend that the Nevela is 100% kosher, it has the best Achshar in the world, but it happens to be it's Yom Kippur today, so you can't eat it anyway. So it says Yom Kippur asers all the food in the world. Similar to here, Achos Isha asers all the sisters in the world of this woman, including Rachel. So it's not adding any Isser. It's not an additional Isser. She didn't become more Asr Bahana, let's say. As we're going to see soon, that sometimes you add to the Avera. The Avera is small, and you add to it, you make it larger, you make it more Asr Bahana. That's Isser Moisef. This is not. This is Isser Kailo. This is included in another Isser called Achos Isha. Yeah? It's a little tricky. Okay, so in this case, now we're holding at 3 Isurim. He started off with Eishes Ach, Eishes Ish, and he added an Achos Isha. Then, what happened was, Rachel turned into a Nida. What Isser is that, Rabbi Isai? This is Isser Moisef. Why? Because now, Ruvain, the husband, is Asr to her. So she's the object, right? She's like, we're talking in terms of halacha now. There's food that's Asr, Nevela. She's Asr, Rachel's Asr on all the brothers. She was 100% mutter to Ruvain. And today she became Asr to Ruvain. So the Isser in Rachel grew. She was once usher to 8.5 billion people in the world because she's Eishes Ish. Today she's usher 8.5 billion plus one, her own husband. Oh, that's Isser Moisef. And that could be added to Navera. Even if you hold Ein Isser Chalal Isser, even if you hold that you don't apply one Isser on top of another Isser, but if the second Isser is larger and greater over here, it's Nida, it's a bigger Isser, it applies. Great. Says the Gemara in Daf Lamed Amud Aleph. Uman antayna, uman haytana the islay isur koilol v'isur moisav isur b'vasachas. Now, what's the vasachas? Ishes ach and ishes ish. They happen together simultaneously. That's how we start out the whole thing. Isur moisav we discussed now. That's the nida. Isur koilol we discussed is the choisisha. So, who's this Tana? I found the Tana. The Sanya. It's possible a person takes a bite, he swallows his food, and by doing so, he's over 4 Isurim and 1 Asham. What's the case? If a person who's Tameh, he eats a piece of Chelev, and it happens to be, it's left over of a carbon. You had to eat it in a certain allotted time, you had to put it on the Mizbech in a certain allotted time, and he didn't. Min HaMukdashim, and it's Hegdish, B'yoyim HaKippurim. I'm going to explain. Meir Omer, Im Hoysa Shabbos, V'yitzir B'piv. If it happens to be Shabbos and he's chewing this, and he walks outside with it in his mouth, that's carrying. Now, if you're carrying in your mouth, when it comes to Shabbos, we know, if anybody learned the Shabbos or Masechtas Shabbos, you have to do a hanacha. You have to put it down. You can't just pick something up and carry it. You're not over until you put it down. So where do you put it down? How do you put something down when it's in your mouth? By swallowing it. Tobias says you have to swallow it. So when he swallowed it, he was over on all the Yisurim together. He was eating kachim, he was over on Me'ilah, he was over on Noisar, he was over on Chelev, and he was over on putting down the Chayfetz in Rosh Hashanah by swallowing it. So now let's take a look real quickly at what's going on here. The top line says that this animal has a piece of Chelev, a piece of fat that's also to eat, right? Animals have Chelev that you're not allowed to eat. The Chelev was created when the animal was born. So it was there. And that Chelev was Schulman. It wasn't hektish yet. It was created whenever it was born, it was Schulman. When you go a step down, somebody went ahead and said that this animal's hektish. It's part of the Beis HaMikdash. Okay, so now if you use it, you're over on Me'ilah. And if you're over on Me'ilah, now he added, that's the Isser Moisav, because until now, the Chelev was usher to eat. But now it became usher b'hana. So this piece, I don't know if you saw the edit that Yosef did on the Friday video. I happened to see most of it. I was holding this cup and he turned it into a steak and then he turned it into a piece of pizza. As I said, chocolate cake and turned it into chocolate cake. Fine. I don't want him to do it again, so I'm not going to say anything about chocolate cake. He took this animal and he made it hegdish. What did he just do? He took this piece, this object, and he added isser to it. Until now, it was mutter b'hana. You can take chelev and make soap out of it and do whatever. You can't eat it. You can't consume it. But once it becomes hegdish, you're not allowed to do anything with it. So that's the isser moisef. Then this hegdish, they shechted the carbon. They were supposed to eat it within a day and a half, a day, 2 days, whatever it was, and they let it go for 3 days. It became noisar. Then it became more asr now, even to the mizbeach. What is that called? Moisef. Once again, it's Isser Moisef. I'm adding Isser. I cannot take this meat and put it on the Mizbeach, so I added Isser. Then he became Tameh. This individual became Tameh. So now he's Asr to all the Kachim in the world. What is that called? It didn't add anything to this object. It added more objects to him. It's like more sisters. That's called Isser Koilel. Now we're understanding a little bit more the difference between Koilel and Moisef. Then today happens to be Yom Kippur. So all the food in the world is Asr. What is that called? So now he's adding to it, and then it's also Shabbos, which you're not allowed to carry. It's an Isser Vasachas. It's simultaneously this Isser. Fine. So you have a man, the Omar called Meir, who says it's a Moisef, it's a Koil, it's a Vasachas. And they told him, they didn't like the fact that he said that you're carrying on Shabbos. Amar Loi, Einu Min Hashem. We're talking about what? You're right, but the Vasachas, they're saying the Vasachas is the Yom Kippur and Shabbos. Those two happen together. You're saying the carrying on Yom Kippur, why is it Shabbos? Here, we got to look into that, Taka. As Yom Kippur itself, but because it's Shabbos and Yom Kippur, that is the Vasachas. So they say, but we're talking about Isser Achila, we're talking about consuming food, and you're talking about Isser carrying. Don't mix the two things up. Edim and Hashem, we don't like that last one that you said. Fine. But regardless, even they hold that you could add all these Yisurim together on one object. Says the Gemara, just a side thing. Meir Ali b'deman. These are very geschmackes sugis actually. Meir Ali b'deman. Now, just as Agdama, what happens? Very interesting case. Listen to this case. It's amazing. A guy wants to do a big mitzvah. He grabs a baby on Shabbos and does a bris milah. And as soon as the bris milah is over, they tell him, "What are you doing? It's the wrong baby. This baby's only 7 days old." Chayav achadas or not chayav achadas? The question is, he tried to do a mitzvah and it turned into be a big avera. You're not allowed to cause somebody to bleed on Shabbos. If you do, you have to bring a chatas by mistake. Over here, it was a mistake. It was an honest mistake. He was a mile, there's 2 babies, he grabbed the wrong one. Yeah, it happens all the time in surgery, right? Have you ever been by surgery like that, by the way? That they cut the wrong limb, they did surgery, but it happens all the time, yeah? Chesed Hashem. Happens all the time. So this is a type of a surgery. They did milah to the wrong. It's not. You have to redo the whole thing. It's nothing milah, 0. You have to redo milah, whatever you have to do, the atavas dam. But he tried to do a mitzvah. Are you going to make him bring a carbon? Machlokes tanoim. So the Gemara says, now Reb Meir is a Talmud of who? Who's his Rebbe? Rebbe Akiva. Who's Rebbe Akiva's Rebbe? These two, Rebbe Yeshua and Rebbe Eliezer. So, now Rebbe Meir must be going according to his Rabbeim. These are like his Rabbeim because they're his Rebbe's Rebbe. According to Yeshua, nothing happened. He's potter. So over here also, why is it a mitzvah? He tried to get married. He's trying to perform a mitzvah and he took the wrong wife. It's the same exact thing as taking the wrong baby. Okay, so it must be that he goes according to the other Rebbe of Rebbe Akiva, Rebbe Eliezer, and he holds that even if you're Torah b'dvar mitzvah, Yechayev, it comes out that the guy and his wife have to bring 16 animals to the Beis HaMikdash because he was over on 4 Yisurim and she was over 16 Averas. So says the Gemara, another pshat is Loilam, I'll leave it to Refuah. It could be going according to Refuah, who says that by a bris milah the moil is completely potter. But over here it's different. He's chayav. Why? Kikam Refuah Tobit var mitzvah potter hanamila gabetinoikos. This is mani bal. He is in a big rush. He wants to do shmina lemila. He only has 1 day to do it. Aval hai kivin dein mani bal. Like, what's his big rush to get married today? You can get married tomorrow. Be careful. Make sure. I understand that they're identical twins. It's 2 brothers. We're going to see in the Gemara. It has to be talking about that they're twins, and him and his brother are twins, and everybody, it's their birthday, and as a matter of fact, it's such a coincidence, everything there. But chill out. Take it easy. Make sure you don't grab the wrong one. And if you don't, if you're not gonna be very careful, take the wrong one, you have to bring a carbon. This nan, oh, sorry. Kivin, this mani bol, loy. Says Gemara V'arei Truma, Dein Zmani Bol. Why are you telling me that has to do with being in a rush? There's another case, very similar case. A person was doing a mitzvah, he was eating truma for a kain. Truma, it's a mitzvah. Dein Zmani Bol, he could eat the truma whenever he wants. Vika potter, and he's still potter from a carbon this nan. Says in the Mishnah, it happens a lot. We had a few in Shir, somebody scream out that his best friend found out certain things, like he was going through, he became a Baal Tshuva, and then he finds out, oh, by the way, your mother's not Jewish. Yeah. So the guy picked himself up from Meish, ran away, never came back. So here, this guy is eating truma. Somebody comes over and says, by the way, you're a chalal. Your mother's divorced. You didn't know your mother's divorced? No, I didn't know. I thought I'm a mitzvah. I'm telling you, your mother's divorced. I was there. I saw it. Oy ben chalutza. She had to do chalitza. She doesn't want to talk about it, but it's a fact. You're not allowed to eat truma. But he thought he's became a mitzvah. Turns out it's an avera. Does he have to bring a carbon or not? You have to bring, like anybody else that eats truma, you have to bring a fifth more. Rabbi Shua Paiter. But over here, you're not forced in time. Nevertheless, Rabbi Shua says he's potter. So why are you telling me dafka by bris milah? Because he's forced, he's in a big rush. Over here, he's truma, it's not a big rush, and Rabbi Shua still says he's potter. Says I think it's a tremendous coincidence, Rabbi Isa. Here we are, just a few days before Erev Pesach, and the Gemara talks about Erev Pesach, but it happens to be that there's a big surprise on Erev Pesach. The Daf, maybe I should not tell anybody, but the Daf talks about Mamish Pesach. On Erev Pesach, we're going to see Bezer Hashem. So over here, Yisroel was hinting to us, hi, saying hello to us. We're not talking about a regular guy eating truma. We're talking about a guy eating truma on Erev Pesach. This mana bowl. Now, it happens to be, look at this pasuk. You have to safeguard the truma. Don't just toss it out. Don't throw it into the chametz pile with all your other chametz and burn it, Erev Pesach. If you can, you're supposed to eat it. So therefore, he's bold. He's in a big pretzel, a press for time. What's the lashon? He's pressed for time. He needs to finish up the pizza, everything, all the chametz from the freezer. That's truma. It's all truma. You ask me why he's so pressed for time. He's pressed for time. It's Erev Pesach. And there's a pasuk that says, "Mishmeres trumaisa." You have to safeguard the truma. Don't just throw it out. Says the Gemara, so we're talking about who's the Tana? Who says that all these things, you could add all these averis? You hear? I could add a Eishasish and Eishasach and then add on top of that a Choisisha, on top of that a Nida. Who's saying it? Now I could say that it goes according to Reb Shimon. Reb Shimon is very hard to Reb Shimon, if you remember, Reb Yossi is the one that says, okay, sometimes you say Isser Chalal Isser, you chayiv two. But Reb Shimon says you always only chayiv one. But even according to Reb Shimon, when it happens together simultaneously, then no Aveira is greater than the other and is more important than the other. You can't say, this Aveira, Eishasach is going to work, and it's going to push off Eishasish. No, Eishasach and Eishasish happen in the same moment, so you chayiv on both. If you could get a choisisha in there as well on the same moment, you chayiv on all three of them. And if she was a nida at the same moment, you chayiv on four of them. Because there's not one that could push off the other. And even Reb Shimon will agree to that. Says the Gemara, So let's go back. We did this riddle before, but let's look at it again from this perspective. When Ruvain marries Rachel on this chart, what is Rachel to Yehuda? What is her? Eishasach, also an Eishasish. Is she an Achoisisha? No. How do you become a Achoisisha? If Yehuda marries the sister. So how could it be silent? So let's say Yehuda marries Leah first. So she's a Achoisisha. But Rachel is not an Eishasach or an Eishasish. If Yehuda married Leah first, so what's Rachel? Only an Achoisisha. She's not married yet to Reuven, so she's not Eishasish and she's not Eishasach. And if it was like this, Reuven got married first, so she is a Eishasach, she is a Achoisisha, but she's not a Achoisisha. She's a Eishasach and Eishasish, but she's not a Achoisisha. So how do you have all three of them happen at the same exact second? Either Reuven married her or Yehuda married his wife. But how do you have... The only way to do it is through a shliach, says the Gemara. That Reuven and Yehuda sent one shliach to be Mekadesh, two sisters. And the two sisters sent one shliach to receive the kiddushin from that one shliach. So when the one shliach put the money into that other shliach's hand, so both sisters became mukudashos at the same exact second. But how did she become a nida that second? How did both of them become a nida? That exact second they became a nida? But there is a trick, says the Gemara. It's possible that each one sent a shliach to receive, and the shliach received it. How is it possible to become? It's very unlikely. Okay, this is very, very likely, this scenario. That you have two sisters marrying two brothers, and the shliach, and they got mixed up at the chasana. That all makes a lot of sense. But how in the world is it possible that they became a nida that second? Oh, it is possible. Once we're going to such a far out case, what happened was that the two men, the twins, it was their birthday that day. 13. They just turned 13 that day. And the two girls just became 12 that day. And they were nida the day before, let's say, a little bit before. So their nidus goes into when they become gdolos. As they become gdolos, they are nida on the millisecond that they become gdolos. And in that millisecond that they become gdola, their kedushin is chal, because when you're ktana, you can't receive the kedushin, you can't make a shliach. Hold on a second. It all happened at the moment that they became 12 years old and they became 13 years old. Boom! It all happened in 1 second. It's not that she became a nida then. She was a nida 2 hours before she became 12, but her body remains tameh as she becomes a gdola. That millisecond she becomes a gdola. Yeah.
Why do we have to go back to when
Hold on, is that what?
girls being 12 and boys being 13 have it with gedolos? So it's chupanita, and then it's the same issue, isn't it? Why do we have to go back to, it was the birthday, and they now they've got simonim, but they're up. Why bother? It's just chupanita, and they're all gedolim anyways.
Yeah, but to receive, had they become the receiving and everything had to happen at the same time as the nida.
Right.
How did that happen?
They're already nida. They're in nida already.
And you're saying,
but the needus wasn't following them simultaneously. They could have been. There were needus before.
Right.
you're saying they're both needs before.
Okay.
So neither has.
Okay, got it. Okay.
But he's saying no. But he's saying that the shlichus happened in 1 second after they were.
But the needus occurred not.
The Isser, okay, time out. The Isser, here's the thing. The Isser Nida, if they were Nidas before, then the whole world was ushered to them as a Nida. The day before. So you wanted that these boys, they become ushered because as Gdolim to them, and they become ushered to them, so that all has to happen as they become Gdolim and as they become Gdolim. Okay, Zog the Gemara.
When did she appoint the shliach?
She appointed before, but it doesn't work until after.
Takes effect once you become.
Yeah, she only takes effect when she becomes 12. And the same for the boys. Okay, new sugya.
One question.
Yeah.
Why isn't before Rachel has a baby?
Yeah.
Why isn't there a contingent zika with Leah?
Well, we're not even talking about Yibam here. This has nothing to do with Yibam.
But there's no connection. Then she wouldn't be.
No, we're not. This is not a sugya about Yibam. This is a sugya about how many averes could one individual be over as he marries a woman. It's the same cartoons as Yibam and the same Baldwin brothers, but it's not. Did I tell you guys that one of the Baldwin brothers, Shimon, the Baldwin guy, he was in Minneapolis? I should show the picture. A guy comes over and says, "Could I have a selfie with the Baldwin brother?" Yeah. Okay. Next sugya. Says the Gemara, Mafrisha Noisan. So it says in the Mishnah that if you have this mistake, it's a terrible mistake that happens, the two wives got switched at marriage, now they have to wait 3 months. Says the Gemara, Vayin Isha Misaberes Babir Rishayna. A woman cannot become pregnant from being with her husband one time. And we're going to see that the reason is because they have psulim. And whatever that the pshat is, the psulim and the bia, you can't create a pregnancy through that. There were 2 bias that night. And from the second one, you could become pregnant. Reb Chia says that the 16, if whatever the pshat is, if there's an awareness in between the 2 bias, and then they forgot, they got mixed up again, whatever. So now you had 2 bias, 2 times 16, 32. So why did Reb Chia say you're only chayiv 16, you should be chayiv 32? Well, Tameich, says the Gemara, every movement within the bia is a new chiyuv, every enjoyment movement, yechayev. Tuva avian. So it's 1,000,000, 1,000, whatever it is. Ein l'davar soif. Hachinami. So you have to say, Elo d'b'koyach rishon k'chashav. I'm not going to go into how many movements there were. I'm just telling you, for the first movement, yechayev 16. Hachinami the bir rishon k'chashav. I'm only talking about the first. You want to make a cheshbon? The guy was with her twice, 10 times. Okay, so each time times 16. But I'm just telling you about the first time. Omelei Rav Nachman, Daf Lamed Daled Amud Beis. Sponsored, I got the wrong page here, by Moshe Horn in honor of Jolly Joe Kraus and family, and in honor of Ed Kinsbursky, Brian Kinsbursky, and Ari Miller for learning the Daf. Says Gemara about Tomer Bebir Rishona Yabra. We know that Tamar wanted to be with Yehuda. Why? Her 2 husbands, Er and Oinan, died. And she wanted to have a legacy from Yehuda. So she did a one-time trick. She stood in the street, pretended she was a Zaina, and he was with her. But only one time. And then she got pregnant. The Gemara understands that even though she was married before, she never had regular bia. It was always shaloi kedarka. And if it was an unnatural, then this thing remains. That Yehuda was with her once. If Yehuda was with her once and she became pregnant, how's it possible? Here you see a steer to what you say. It's possible to become pregnant from the first time. Tamar knew about this thing. So what she did is she got rid of her psulim by herself. She didn't have psulim, and therefore it's possible to get pregnant then. You had all these women from Rebbe's house. In those days, what happened was they would get married, and the men would travel far away to Yeshiva and learn for a long time. We had it in Gemara a bunch of times. They'd come home Erev Yom Kippur once a year. So these tzidkaniyos would send their husbands away, but they wanted to perhaps get pregnant right away. It's a sad thing. They get pregnant, have a child, the husband wasn't even there for the bris. So what did they do? They made sure they weren't psulais, so that by the first bia they could get pregnant. And they nicknamed them Tamar Shman, because Tamar invented this idea. So they called Tamar Shman. V'lo mo nigr Shman Tamar. Hashem Tamar shemacha shemiacha be'etzba. Tamar did it by herself. Says the Gemara. Another question. What are you telling me that Tamar was married to 2 men before she was with Yehuda? So obviously she didn't have psulim. Obviously it's not her bia rishayna. What are you so concerned about? Says Gemara, Ervan and Shimshu Shalei Kedarkon. They never had regular bia. It was always Shalei Kedarkon. Says the Gemara, Meisvei Kol Esem V'Arba Chodesh Dashmi B'Fnim V'Zorim B'Chutz. So we had a little bit of the sugya on Daf Beis about the 3 women that could be mishamish b'moich, contraceptive. So we had over there about the first 24 months that the woman nurses her child, 24 months. In those days, they didn't have formula. So imagine, if a baby didn't have formula and the baby can't nurse, the baby goes bye-bye. They would hire people as a whole thing. So in order to prevent the woman from getting pregnant, as we learned in that sugya, that the pregnancy ruins the milk, so what the Gemara is suggesting here is that a person should be mashche zera. In other words, before the act is finished, the zera should go outside, not inside to impregnate the woman. It's a big shaila. Ramosha finds it, and I discussed it back then. Why are you allowed to be mashche zera? And this is a yisoid in hashchal zera. Why are you allowed to be mashche zera? Because it's pikuach nefesh. If this baby's mother becomes pregnant, the baby will die. So I have to take action that the mother shouldn't become pregnant. So ask Ramosha. So don't be with her. If the baby's dying, of course you have to do something. But who told you to be with your wife? So he says, you see from me yisoid that when you're mechuyev to be with your wife, there's a mitzvah and everything else. That's considered for tzarech. That's not levatala. And everything else that you have to do is part of it. So Zayr b'machutz, the Rebbe Eliezer. Amr Eli. So what do you see from here? So that Manorma says on the outside. Amr Eli, what do you mean on the outside? To tell a man to do that, then you're acting like Aaron Noinan. And Aaron Noinan got punished by death for doing that, for being mashal zera. So what are you supposed to do? So like we learned in that sugya in Daf Beis. Do what you need to do, and minashamayim yirachamu shomer psoyim Hashem. Hashem will save you. Ba'akopanim, what's the Gemara's question? You see from here that Ervin Einan didn't do shaloi kedarka. It was kedarka. And then they were mashal zera b'chutz, but it's regular bia. Says Gemara, it's somewhat like Meir but not exactly. It's v'shichas arza. There's ashchas zera. By Erev Einan, all their bias was shaloi kedarka. Over here we're talking about kedarka, but ashchas zera b'chutz. So let's talk about the two brothers. One brother, it says specifically in the Torah, v'shiches arza. He was mashches, he destroyed his seed. Elo er minala. But what happened with Er? How do we know he did the same avera? Him also, he's in the same category as his brother Er. For the same reason he died. Loi with the aleph, loi with a vav. Because he realized that it's not going to be named. We're talking about this mamash yibum. This is yibum. What happened? Er dies without any children. Einan marries his sister-in-law because of yibum, and then he realizes, wait a minute, it's not cool. This kid that's going to be produced here is not going to be my child. He's going to be named. The whole purpose of yibum is to lakim shem lachev, that the dead brother should have a continuation, remembrance. I don't want that, he says. Einan says, I don't want it. Says the Gemara. So we understand why he was mashche zera. He didn't want to impregnate her. Elo Er, my time of it, achi. But what's Er's reason? Why did Er, who's first married to Tamar, why did he do it? Says Gemara, he didn't want her to become pregnant, and that will diminish her beauty. That's what it was. And for that he was mashche zera, and for that he was killed. Tanur Rabbanan. Oisa, okay, let's take a look at this pasuk for a second. V'isha asher yishkav ish oisa shichva zera, v'rochatzu b'mayim v'tamu adar. This is halacha. Anytime a man is with his wife, they become tamei. This week, Parshas Mitzayra, Perek Tezvav pasuk Yud Ches, this week's parsha, they have to go to the mikvah. They become tamei, go to the mikvah. Now, there's two things here. The actual zera has the ability to be mitam of people. You touch it, you become tummy. But even without that, just bia alone makes a person tummy. But it says in the pasuk Oisa in red. Oisa is a miut. Not every woman that you're with, you have to go to the mikvah. There's one woman not. Who's that one woman? Prat lekala. Kala, you don't have to go to the mikvah. Says the Gemara, Devorah Cohen. The Chacham Meir prat l'shaloi kedarka. Shaloi kedarka is not the natural way of bia. And memela, it doesn't require mikvah. Omer lei hun berei de Rav Nachman le Rav Nachman. Rav Nachman's son, his name was Hun. Lema kasava Rabbi Yehuda Torah chosat achshite kala. Now, don't forget, it's an amazing thing, and every time I think about it, I go off a shtickle on it, that Akash Baruch Hu, he braided Chava's hair. She was a kala, and he made her look beautiful. He himself came down, braided her hair, put on her makeup, and sent her to the chuppah. Akash Baruch Hu. But there's people that are more frum than Akash Baruch Hu, and they pay money that the kala shouldn't pay. I'm not joking. This is an organization. If a kala doesn't wear makeup, you get $1,000 in Eretz Yisrael. $1,000. More frum. Every time I think about it, it drives me crazy. But anyway, so he's asking, like in a joke kind of thing. He's asking his father, what? Hakadosh Baruch Hu didn't want the kala to go to the mikvah, so it's going to ruin her makeup? Why is a kala different than everybody else? Doesn't make sense. Why does a kala not have to go to the mikvah? Yeah? A Torah chasat achshite kala. The Torah is concerned about the makeup of the kala. Amar lei lefi she'enisha misaberes mebia rishayna. So if you look in the pasuk, it says Asher yishkav ish oisa shichva zera. That has the ability. What kind of bia do you go to the mikvah? A bia that has the ability to make the woman pregnant. But since she's a kala and she can't become pregnant from the first bia, so Mela, that's not shichva zera. It doesn't fit into the pasuk of shichva zera. Marty, what are you scratching here? It doesn't fit into the science? Yeah, okay. Says the Gemara, but Michael Mifligi, Rabbanan Savi Shichva Zera. You don't know that for a fact because maybe they didn't have psulim. Maybe all those 12-year-olds that come to the hospital today and this and that, they didn't have psulim or whatever. But Michael Mifligi, I was just thinking as I'm learning it now, it might be the biggest shtus kasha, so that I didn't want to say it, but I'm going to say it anyway. Like we know that Yaakov Avinu, it says that Ruvain was Reishis Oini Koichi. It was his first zera. So how does that work exactly? I thought it was the beer. I thought for some reason Ruvain was the okay. My chavrus, if he hears this question, he's going to go crazy on me. Like, well, I'm sure you don't see Rashi says Mufur. Okay, whatever. Sorry for asking. Rabbanan Sarvi Shichva Zera Prat La'ara. La'ara means the start of the bia. So over there, the first motion, the beginning, there's no, Rashi says either neshika, just touching, or it just means a little, but at the end of the day, there's no zera there. So Mela, that you don't go to the mikvah. Shilva zera prat ra, oisa prat l'shaloi kedarka. So for shaloi kedarka also, no, it doesn't make you tummy that you need to go to the mikvah. Rabbi Yehuda savar shaloi kedarka ba'ra mishilva zera nafka. At the end of the day, if you think about it, Shaloi Kedarka cannot impregnate a woman, so Mela it's not included in Shechva Zera. And Ara also, for the same reason, is not considered, it can't be included in the word Shechva Zera. So Mela, both of them are from that exclusion of Shechva Zera. And what do you do with the word Oisa? Oisa have another miot prat lekalo. Says the Gemara, and he says, now this also, Marty, you're not going to like this, but it might have explanations in today's science. If a woman is a widow for 10 years, and then she gets married after 10 years, shuv any yoledes. She can't give birth again. What's the nafkamina? Nafkamina, if a person doesn't have any children, and he's chayiv and pruvu, he shouldn't marry that woman. She's an akara. Wait a minute. Let me qualify what we just said. It's not stam a woman who didn't get married. Not every woman. A woman who doesn't want to get married. But a woman who's going in shidduchim and she's thinking about getting married, she doesn't lose the ability to have children. Oh, so this is the famous story we learned a number of times, that the daughter of Chizda, when she was very young, she was sitting on her father's lap, on Rav Chizda's lap, and she said, you see these two Talmidim of yours, Rava and Rami Bar Chama? I'm going to marry them both. So Rava said, I want to be second. In other words, he realized that if she's marrying both, and what she's saying is Nevuah, which in fact was, let me at least live. I want to be second. Okay. So what happened was, she marries Rami Bar Chama, and Rami Bar Chama was nifter. And they read her shidduchim upon shidduchim, and she says, no, because Rava was still married, and she knew that she's going to be marrying Rava. So eventually she marries Rava, and they have a child. And Rava tells her, the daughter of Chizda, my wife, Kamerani Rabbanan Basraich. Rabbanan are saying that since you were widowed for more than 10 years, how is it possible that you had a child afterwards? It must be, you must have been with some other man sometime in between. Omerlei, what are you talking about? I was thinking about you the whole time. And I'm not in that category. And what were Rabbanan thinking? Rabbi said, what were Rabbanan thinking? What business did they have to think? Maybe she really wanted to get married and she couldn't find. So they say, because Rabbanan saw, they gave her the best shidduchim in the world. One Talmud Chacham after another. And she kept on saying no. So they said, wait a minute, she doesn't want to get married. So what do you mean she was thinking about getting married? She wasn't thinking about getting married. She kept on knocking the shidduchim. But little did they know that she had a nevuah. She had a Ruach HaKodesh thing going on, and she knew she's going to marry Rava one day. And she tells Rava, don't worry about it. I was thinking about you. I was keeping you in mind, and in Mela, I could have children. Ahi dasi the Rav Yosef, the story that a woman comes to Rav Yosef. Omer Rebbe, anoshi yisi achar baili eser shona v'yolati. What Chacham say is bogus. I'm a living example of a woman who didn't have a husband for 10 years. I got married 12 years later, and I had a child. So the Gemara doesn't know what they're talking about. Science is right. The Gemara doesn't know what they're talking about. Omar lo, biti, al toitzi laz al divrei chachamim. Why are you saying things like that? What you're saying is making the Gemara look wrong. You know the truth. Omar le, I'm sorry. You're right. I lied. L'nochri nevalti. I was actually with a guy. Now the Ritva says that she wasn't really with a guy, but she had a taiva for a guy. She had a neighbor, she had her eye out on him. Now, as we just said with Rava's wife, you don't have to be with somebody. All you need to do is think about somebody, and that's enough to give you the ability to have a child. Omar Shmuel, v'chulon tzrichos lahamdin shleisha chadashim. Says Shmuel Yisoid, any woman that was ever married and she wants to remarry has to wait for 3 months. There was a woman in Atlanta by Reb Feldman, Reb Emanuel Feldman, I think his name was, and she got divorced. And he told her at the divorce, he says, listen, by the way, you're getting divorced, you cannot get married for 3 months. So she put up a big fight. She goes, you guys are whatever the word is. How come a man can get married? My husband, my ex, get married today, and I have to wait 3 months. This is not fair. You rabbis, you're anti-women, blah, 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 the whole thing. So he looked at her, he said, listen, could your husband get pregnant today? No. Could you? Yes. Oh, that's why. Because the problem is we need to be certain who the father is. That's all it is. Now I chap. It's about being sure that the Vlad is the new husband and not the old husband. So Amar Shmuel, there are 2 women in the world that don't have to wait 3 months, and that is a giyaris and a slave that was freed. Ktana. So what does that come to exclude? If I ask you, and who does have to wait 3 months? A Jewish girl who is a ktana. There's only 2 ktanas that don't have to wait. A giyaris and a mishuchraris. But everybody else, even a ktana Yisroel. And now that's a big problem with our Mishnah. Because in our Mishnah it says that if they're ktanas, a Jewish ktana doesn't have to wait. They can marry, they could bring, the wife switched at the chuppah. Tomorrow they go back to the real husbands because they're ktanas. Now the Gemara says, what's the story? Remember the story of Mion. That a mother marries off her daughter when she's still 10 years old. So Chacham said, since the whole Kiddushin is only a D'Rabbanan Kiddushin, the girl could just say to the husband, I don't want to be with you. In that case, she has to wait 3 months. Now it's very gishmak. Why? Why does a Ktana have to wait 3 months? She can't be pregnant. She's a Ktana. So why does she have to wait 3 months? Gzeira. Because people are going to get confused between a Ktana and G'dayla. But over here in Miyun, when it comes to Miyun, who could do Miyun? Only a Ktana. So there's nothing to get confused with. They'll say, she's a Ktana, she did Miyun, she doesn't have to wait. Vi beget, and if you're talking about just a regular get, and she's 10 years old and her husband gave her a get. Ahron Shmuel Chadazimna. Ahron Shmuel Chadazimna. He already said this halach. Why does he have to repeat it? Ahron Shmuel miano boy if she did miyun ain't it tzrich laden shlish chodashim. No, it's only get tzrich laden shlish chodashim. So we already know this halach that if somebody gives a get to ktana, she doesn't have to wait 3 months. Why did he repeat it? Ela biznus. We're talking about she was mizana, and if she's mizana, comes Shmuel and says that she has to wait 3 months. In fact, the whole point of waiting 3 months is to be certain that she's not pregnant from the first guy, or if she is, at least we know who the baby is from. But we know that she can't become pregnant. We have to make the difference. We have to make exer between her, so we don't get confused between her and a gdayla. Says Gemara, because reading Tanam Shem Gdayla, is there such a thing? The exer of Atnan. We learned the Mishnah. It says in our Mishnah, we don't make exera. If they made a swisheroo by the chuppah, say, oops, boo-boo, and tomorrow they go back to their husband. You don't have to wait 3 months. Because diktanas, if diktanas. Our Mishnah was a one-time story. There was a crazy story. There was a switcheroo. They happened to be brothers. They happened to be sisters. They happened to be the whole thing. And Chacham said, you know what? Because the Ktanis, and they happen to be 10 years old, that fine. Says the Gemara, Miklal dahavis. So what? You telling me the story happened? If it's a Rosh, if it was a special halacha for that minute, that means the story happened. Elo kiharasha. It didn't really happen. It was a one-time thing. V'chiluv l'shchiach. It's like we are giving a temporary halacha response, but at the end of the day, because this whole story is so improbable, it's never going to happen. The story that 2 brothers married 2 sisters and they got switched at the chuppah, the whole thing. So therefore, there's no gzeira in such a case. We only make gzeiras when it's going to happen, but this case is not going to happen. Have a wonderful evening, a wonderful week. We'll see you tomorrow, Be'ezer Hashem, here in Chicago, live at 8:00 p.m. Chicago time. Have a wonderful week.